All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to talk about Gervonta Tank Davis and Devin Haney, what Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Leonard Ellerbe have had to say about that fight, and whether or not Devin Haney is telling the truth about Gervonta Tank Davis being trapped and getting closer to making a fight. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon, and in this video, we're going to be in the 135-pound division talking about Gervonta Tank Davis, the WBA regular champion and the undisputed champion of the lightweight division, Devin the Dream Haney. Devin Haney says that he is closing in on a fight with Gervonta Tank Davis, so we're going to talk about whether or not that is true or not based on what Leonard Ellerbe, the CEO of Mayweather Promotions, has said, and Floyd Mayweather Jr. Floyd Mayweather Jr. has said. But before I get into that, let me welcome you back to the channel. If you are new to the channel, please accept my invitation to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. And also, if you are a longtime subscriber and supporter to the channel, thank you so much for your support, ongoing support. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. Hey, but please remember to hit that like button and share the video before you leave the room. All right, so let's get into this. On the day before yesterday, Devin Haney was on $1 Million Worth of Game podcast with Gilly the Kid and was asked a series of questions. Very, very good interview. I had certain takeaways from it. Devin Haney, one of the interesting things that Devin Haney said in that interview was he was asked about Gervonta Tank Davis and whether or not, he said, are you going to fight with Gervonta Davis? And Devin Haney said, yeah, we're closing in on it, right? But he also said that Devin Haney was capped, not telling the truth. Gervonta Davis was not telling the truth about whether or not Gervonta Davis actually hurt Devin Haney in sparring, right? So that's the kind of the little bit about him. And that is a very fair representation of what the man said. If you are in love with Devin Haney as a fighter, hey man, it is what it is. The man says what he says. Now, let's talk about whether or not there's actually a lot of truth in that. And the question and the fact of the matter is, based off of what Floyd Mayweather Jr. has said and Leonard Ellerbe has said, there's not. Now, what has Leonard Ellerbe said about that fight? Immediately after the fight between Gervonta Tank Davis and Rolly Romero, not long after the fight between George Kambosos and Devin Haney, Leonard Ellerbe reiterated what he had said previously, and he's been very, very consistent with, which is that they are trying to make the fights that are big fights. And by big fights, he means fights that are going to be a lot of interest to boxing fans. And the way that they are going to determine whether it's a lot of interest to boxing fans is whether or not they believe a lot of boxing fans are going to pay to come to the arena and watch it, and whether or not a lot of boxing fans are going to pay the pay-per-view to watch it if they cannot actually travel to the arena. That is the criteria which Leonard Ellerbe is using to determine what a big fight is. And I do not think, to be fair, I don't think that there is any better way to decide to define that. And what he said about Devin Haney, what he said about specifically what he said about Devin Haney was like, look, first of all, no, it's not a big fight. Devin Haney is a very, very good fighter, but Devin Haney works for Bob Arum. He's on that top rank fight, but that is not necessarily a big fight because those guys have not yet proven that they can put butts in seats. And that is the saying that you hear over and over again, butts in the seats. Not necessarily about the belts. And when you listen to what Floyd Mayweather Jr. says, Floyd Mayweather Jr. just recently said, look, there's a million different belts. There's a million different fighters, that all have belts in all kind of divisions. And now, obviously, in this particular case, Devin Haney has the belt. But what Floyd Mayweather Jr. said about Devin Haney and Gervonta Davis, he said that a while ago. It's like, look, those guys are in different weight classes. And that fight's not going to happen because those guys are not in the same weight class. Devin's going to be up at a higher weight class. So you take that along with what Leonard Ellerbe has to say, and the fact that Devin Haney, and just the fact that Devin Haney has at least two more fights left on his deal with Top Rank, it makes the likelihood of a Gervonta Davis versus Devin Haney fight even smaller. If you look at what Leonard Ellerbe and those guys are saying the criteria is for the fight. If he goes and fights George Kambosos again in Australia, it's not going to do a lot for Devin. It's not going to be something where people are going to be very, very interested in that fight. That's just going to be it's just a dud fight where everybody knows or is going to already believe that Devin Haney is going to win that fight. It's going to be on ESPN. A rematch is probably, I don't know, what did they do, like 1.3 or 1.4 million on ESPN, which was, by the way, a little bit less than what Shakur Stevenson had got on ESPN and their viewership, about 100,000 less, or maybe a little bit, maybe 50,000 less than Shakur Stevenson got against Oscar Valdez on ESPN. So when the first fight, now I'm not saying that that's not good. I mean, those are good numbers for ESPN, but they're not great numbers for ESPN. They're not like break the bank, I'm some huge, gigantic name type of numbers, right? That Shakur Stevenson and Oscar Valdez did, or Devin Haney and George Kambosos did. So if Devin Haney comes back in the next rematch with George Kambosos again, I doubt very much that those numbers are going to go up. Those numbers very well may go down. So then after that, you're going to have a Devin Haney, more than likely, you'll have a Devin Haney fight against Vasily Lomachenko. Somebody else that is going to be another fight that's going to be on regular ESPN, that's probably going to be in a ballroom in Madison, like a Madison Square Garden ballroom, right? Not something like what Ryan Garcia could do with like 15, 12, whatever it was, 12, 13,000 and in San Antonio, right? It's just not those type of numbers that are going to come out for Devin anytime within the next year or two, right? And he's just now getting off of DAZN, where really nobody's watching a lot of fighters over there in DAZN. What's happened with Canelo Alvarez's number when he was over the DAZN is it just goes down and down and down, right? Went back up when he got on the PBC for a second, got to 800,000 or whatever is what they said, but then back down to 350,000 pay-per-views when he's back on DAZN, right? So that whole DAZN thing, Devin, it's going to take for a while for Devin to basically promote himself out of that DAZN hole that he got for all of that money, right? So is it likely that he is going to fight Gervonta Davis? No, it is not. It is more likely that Gervonta Davis would fight a Vasily Lomachenko, or over time, if Shakur Stevenson gets some big wins, Shakur Stevenson. But just the amount of time that Devin has left in that weight class, because he's definitely one of the biggest guys at 135. He's a similar size to Teofimo Lopez, who for some reason is still in those rankings in that weight class. I don't get it, seeing as he already said he moved out. But so anyway, man, based on what those guys say, that fight ain't going to happen anytime soon. And we're going to be looking at what Devin Haney is going to be able to do against fighters like against like Josh Taylor, because Josh Taylor's the top ranked fighter. So he should be able to get that Josh Taylor fight. That's a more realistic fight, probably, than the Gervonta Davis fight. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.